My name is Ryan Corcoran. I'm an entrepreneur and real estate investor, and if you're new to my channel, I have purchased over 15 million in real estate, and I've helped other investors purchase over 10 million in real estate thus far. And I created this channel to help you create financial freedom through real estate investing, just like I have. Today, really what we're going to be talking about is how I became a millionaire at 27 years old using real estate investing as my tool. First off, I didn't come from wealth, right? I came from a very middle-class family. Both my parents worked, 9-to-5 jobs, making decent money, but very, very middle class, right? Disclaimer, I wasn't handed properties to start my career out with. I wasn't handed money to say, hey, here, go do whatever you want with. I really had to really build myself. What really triggered this was, I remember being a kid, and I remember, watching all these, really nice cars drive by our house, and, these beautiful homes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm probably, reaching high school at this time. How do people get to that level? Why is my family not like that? I stumbled across real estate. Basically, my mom had once told me, she's like, hey, why don't you go talk to your uncle? He owns a construction company. He knows real estate. Why don't you go chat with him? And so, I ended up going to chat with him, and his advice to me was, you're almost, you're going off to school. Instead of renting, why don't you try to buy a property? Every weekend I would go and meet with him, and we would discuss and chat, and I'd be reading books on everything I possibly could about buying real estate. And, I basically stumbled across this house hacking idea. And so I started my search for a duplex or a triplex in the area where I was going to be going to college. Well, anyways, I stumbled upon this duplex in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. It was on market. It was listed for $130,000. I walked the property, and I brought my uncle, and my dad came with me, and a couple of my friends, and we ended up saying, okay, well, the numbers make sense at around 125. Right? So I offered 115. They rejected it. They accepted another offer, and the property didn't actually go through. Popped back up on the MLS. I was able to then scoop it up and make a cash offer of 125 grand. Now you're probably saying, Ryan, how'd you just get a cash offer for $125,000 on a duplex? Well, fortunately, my uncle at the time had a little bit of money, and he was willing to basically fund the project for me, and I would put a specific down payment down, and then I would rehab it myself. The point of this channel is to be super transparent. So I had $5,000 in my bank account. I ended up borrowing $10,000 from my parents. I ended up borrowing friends and family's time, and I ended up borrowing about $105,000 from my uncle. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, you're lucky you had an uncle. Well, as I get into my story, I borrowed a lot more money from other individuals outside of my uncle who are not my family members. Much greater amounts. So that's really not an excuse to get started. Bought that duplex, and my plan was to live in the property. But I ended up going to college, and ended up staying at college, and I ended up just renting out the 2 units. And, I was making $700 or $800 a month in cash flow after all reserves and everything was paid off. I'm looking at this, and it's, it's paying for my gas, it's paying for my food. It was basically paying for me to live while I was in college. And I knew it wasn't sustainable at that point for just a duplex to do that, but when everyone else was, struggling, I was making $800 a month in college, which is quite a bit of money. After I graduated college, I decided I was going to go get my master's in physician assistant license. So I went to graduate school, and I got my master's as a PA. But during that time, basically watched the real estate market appreciate, and I knew I wanted to keep buying properties, and I knew that a duplex was not going to get me to where I wanted to be at. So I ended up selling that duplex. And, I'll never forget, I walked away with an $80,000 check, and I'm looking down at my PA salary after I graduate school, and I'm going to be making, just over $100,000 to start. I'm like, oh, well, hell, I almost just made that in 1 year by selling this property that I, haven't done anything to after I did some TLC to it when I first bought it. So I ended up sitting on this chunk of change. I then found another 3-family, and this time we actually performed a house hack on it, right? So me and my fiance at the time, we purchased this 3-family property in Fitchburg. We moved into the top floor. We rehabbed the top floor. The second and first floor were rented. We did slow rent increases over the course of about 6 months. And we were making probably $200 or $300 a month living in that property. rent-free. They covered all the mortgage, they covered the water, the electric, every single expense, then some, and we were sitting on about $200 or $300 a month. And this was huge because we had just graduated college. We just graduated our graduate school, and we both had our master's degrees now, and we were just starting our jobs, and we were able to, really save a lot of money to start. So the next thing we did was we saw, again, the market appreciate. After we did some TLC, we forced some equity in the property, and we ended up listing the property on the market for $90,000 more than we bought it for. We ended up getting an offer for $90,000 more than we bought it for, and we ended up going through and selling that property, and we walked away with a $90,000 check, and my wife was looking at me like, you have got to be kidding me, like, we need to do this. So in 2 years, I had made $80,000 from a duplex and $90,000 from a triplex. That was already more than what we would have made as a PA. And so, I continued to work as a PA. I was working in an ICU. And so the next step for me was, after I sold that 3-family, was to find another property. But this time I wanted to go bigger. So I ended up partnering with a buddy who owned 50 units at the time on a 10-unit property. And believe it or not, I didn't use any of that profit. The rest of it we raised from a private money investor. We needed $125,000 to close on this 10-unit property. And we brought the money to the table, we closed on the property, we ended up paying him back monthly, and in 6 months we actually sold that 10-unit property, and we made each about $40,000 in a 6-month period. So if you're following, I'm at, over 200, about 220, 230 grand now in less than 2 years. I could see this snowball effect starting to happen. And so from that 10-unit, we ended up going on and buying a 5-unit, and then a 9-unit, and then we did a 66 unit, and since then, I've accumulated 157 units up to this point. We'll go through how that actually made me a millionaire, right? So when every single property I buy is off market, 95% of them, right? So I'm buying these properties at under market value as it is. So I'm just gonna go through an example here, right? So we bought this 5-unit property in Conway, New Hampshire. We bought the property for $385,000 when it probably should have been bought at about $450,000. We've got 70 or 65 grand in equity right there. We went in, we increased the rents by about 200 to 250 per unit, and we increased the value drastically by taking the net operating income and dividing it by the cap rate in the area, right? So we purchased for $385. After we were done doing a little bit of TLC and increasing those rents, this property is now worth $550, okay? So you can see there's a pretty big split there now. And so since I bought this with a partner, 50-50, you divide that in half, and I'm not doing the math off the top of my head, but it's about $75,000 for each of us. I'll give you another example. We bought a 9-unit property in Laconia, New Hampshire. We bought this for $730,000. This, me and the same partner. This property appraised at over $1 million after we were done increasing rents. We each added $200,000 in equity, in net worth to our total net worth calculation. Right, so just between those two properties, I'm almost at $300,000 in net worth. And so over the course of 157 units now, I've gotten to the point where, in terms of real estate net worth, I'm at about 1.8 million in real estate net worth. And then after you subtract all of the debt that I have, it's about 1.5 to 1.56. And that was to start the beginning of 2022. Once I got to that point, I kind of realized that, all right, it's awesome increasing my net worth, right? Like, that's what it's all about. However, cash flow is not something I can live off of. I want to be able to quit my job as a PA. I want to be able to stop and do real estate full time. I told my wife, I'm like, listen, we have 157 units. We're making about $6,000 to $7,000 a month in cash flow. It's not enough for me to say, hey, I can quit my job comfortably. But I knew that for me to get to the next level, and this is not for everybody, but for me to get to the next level, instead of just buying rental and then buying another rental and increasing slowly, I wanted to really put my foot on the gas pedal here. So we had a conversation with my wife and I basically said, listen, I want to quit my job. This is what I want to do full time. And so, at first she was like, absolutely not. And then, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I ended up going per diem. So that was my compromise, right? So I ended up being a per diem PA in the ICU. I was working about one shift a week, about one 24-hour shift a week. And in the meantime, I was really hammering direct mail. I hired a cold caller. I started to do a lot of off-market direct to seller marketing campaigns, and I was getting leads, like 5 to 10 warm leads every single day. I'm sorry, every single week. I remember being at the hospital, taking care of a patient, my phone would be ringing and I'd be thinking, well, this could be a potential seller, right? And so at that point in time, I knew that it was now time for me to step away from medicine. Even though I was only working in medicine for a year and a half, it was time for me to step away and really focus my time and my energy, and devotion, and really go all in real estate investing. And so from that point, I really took off. I ended up starting a wholesaling and flipping company along with buying rentals. Right, so actually today we got a 5-unit property under contract that we're gonna be flipping. And so we'll go through the example on that. So direct to seller marketing, I sent a letter. Last year I sent a letter to this guy. He called me back about 6 months ago. He said, hey, I kept your letter, I'm ready to sell my property. It's a 5-unit property in Gardner, Massachusetts. 1 unit's vacant, the other 4 are rented. They're all below market. I was able to buy this, or able to lock it up for $350,000. We're gonna go in there, we're gonna put about $12,000 to $15,000 in rehab in that 1 unit that needs to be done. We're gonna rent it, we're gonna increase everyone else's rent by about $200 a door. And then when we're done with that, the property is gonna be worth just over $500, right? So after about, let's say $20,000 in rehab, and if there's any holding costs or anything like that, we're now at $370,000, right? There's a $130,000 split in there. And so that's the types of flips I'm doing. I'm not necessarily big into the single family flips yet, although I am going to try to, segue into that eventually. But I'm a big multifamily guy. I really like the units. The more units make the property more attractive to me, because the numbers really start to look a lot better when there are more units. So if you want to learn about long-term rentals, buy and holds, and flipping properties, I've actually started a real estate investing coaching program where I basically mentor and do one-on-one training with clients. So if you're interested, hit the link below and take a look at the website and book a call with me for free. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is my first YouTube video, and I know I'm a little bit late to the game here, but I thought it'd be really important for you guys to see how real estate can really quickly amplify your life and change your life. Right, and just at 27 years old, I had a net worth of $1 million, and most people in their lives don't ever reach that point. And in a short 2.5 to 3 year period, I've been able to achieve that rather quickly. And once you get to this point, it really compounds much faster, right? And so from January to now, the net worth has gone up over $500,000 in a 6-month period, where it took 3 years to get to that 1.5. Right? And they always say the first million is the hardest. But please reach out, check out the coaching program. I'd love to help you out if I can. And to be honest with you, if you book a call with me and I don't think I can help you, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you, and I'll give you the best advice I can, because at the end of the day, I'm really creating this channel and the coaching program and everything just to help you guys out and do what I can to assist in your financial freedom with you.